Good evening, everyone. Today is January 18th, 2016. Happy New Year and welcome back to Veterans Voices, a monthly talk show focusing on your issues, veterans issues. I'm your host, Nathan Johnson, and I'm joined again by my co-host, Kevin Graves.
Hey, Nathan.
Kevin, welcome back. It's been a couple of months. I think the last show you and I did was in October.
Well, it's good to be back.
It's very good to be back, and thank you for joining us again. Before we begin tonight's episode, Kevin and I would like to invite you to contact us during the next few minutes while we broadcast live from the CCTV studio right here in Martinez. Next month, in February, we'll be bringing you a special episode on a topic that's being covered a lot in the media lately. Moral injury is the crisis of conscience that happens when people do things or witness an act that goes against their beliefs and morals. It's this pain and sorrow that can result in damage to a person's moral foundation. Talking about moral injury is very difficult, but your participation is key to our upcoming show.
Unlike PTSD, moral injury is not officially recognized in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. But more and more veterans are coming home with this condition, which can have a deep impact on the individual and their family. We'd like to now share a Huffington Post interview of a veteran suffering with moral injury and how it impacted them during war as well as coming home.
As millions of American men and women return from serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, they're heading home with more than just the physical scars of war. Science and society have both come to recognize PTSD as a lasting trauma affecting veterans. But a different, less understood condition may be the signature wound felt by this generation of servicemen and women. And it's called moral injury, the psychological damage that troops face when their actions at war contradict their moral codes. Do you feel like you were prepared morally when you were going abroad and into war?
I'm not in agreement with the statement that as prepared as you can be, as morally equipped or as well-trained as you are, there are going to be situations where you're going to be faced with the moral quandary. For example, in my personal experience, we were in a firefight where the Taliban were shooting at our forward operating base. And I saw a man running through a tree line and what looked like a weapon in his hands. And we were taking fire from that direction. So I lit into him with a machine gun, and I saw him drop, and the local farmers wheeled him up to our base and told me that he was a farmer. And there I was trying to protect my fellow Marines, trying to stop people from shooting at our base. I saw what I believed at the time to be an enemy. The best of my training, the best of my skills, the best of my experience in Afghanistan, I believed him to be an enemy. And when I killed him, I realized that I'd killed, an innocent civilian, or I was told that he was. Now, even to this day, I don't know whether he was innocent or not. Maybe he was in the Taliban and I was lied to, but the reality of war is that there are situations that you'll be presented with that you have to tackle as a 19, 20-year-old man or woman that, don't fit into a black and white moral code. They can't easily be labeled as right or wrong. And that can be difficult to deal with when you came home. For me, it was difficult to deal with the fact that I didn't feel anything about that. I knew that I should feel guilt about that, but I didn't, and I struggled with that for a long time. And those are the situations I believe David is talking about. As well trained as you can be, you're still going to have to face situations in which there is almost no right or wrong at that split second. You've got to make a decision, and you have to live with that decision for the rest of your life.
And for you, was that something that hit you immediately after, when you did see the body? Did you start thinking about what you had done then, or did it take a little longer? Did it really start hitting once you got home and once you were no longer there in the theater of war?
I can't say, honestly, because I feel like it has yet to hit me. And that's troubling because I wonder what I've got inside of me, or it's kind of locked inside of me or something. But I remember we were leaving to go on a patrol as they wheeled his body up, and I looked down at him and saw what I had done, and I'm not sure to this day how I feel about it, because at the time I believed in that decision. I believed that that was the right thing to do. I thought he was a combatant. He was running, we were taking fire from that direction, we were always getting shot at from that direction. I did what I thought was right at the time, but now I have to live with it. So it is difficult, but I think that's the reality of war, is that as black and white as we try and make it with the rhetoric, or black and white as we try and make it before we leave for war, it's always going to be a morally ambiguous situation on the ground sometimes. The guilt that we've talked about, I've felt that. The responsibility to live life to the fullest in order to accommodate for those that aren't there is something that I feel every day, and it's a very difficult process. It is.
Well, that was a very powerful interview, and I'm sure that there are many of you out there that have experienced some of those same feelings. Are you a veteran with moral injury? How might it be affecting you? We'd like to hear your story. Are you a family member with a veteran suffering from moral injury? What does this topic mean to you? We are broadcasting live right now for the next several minutes, and we'll be taking your calls, emails, and anonymous chats. Please call in. Viewer questions and comments have really driven the content and direction of our show. So tonight, we want to solicit your feedback for our upcoming episode, as well as we would like you to share some of our favorite memories from the last year. So call in, email, or send us a chat about what moral injury means to you.
Originally, we were planning to air a special episode on moral injury this evening. But we realized that we needed more input from our viewers. We needed your contributions to this show. It's a very difficult topic, and we know that moral injury affects so many of us. So now we're here to take your feedback and incorporate your thoughts into our moral injury episode. We'd like to remind you to visit our website for links to resources discussed on tonight's show and upcoming events in your area. Please call in. Now's a good time to hear from you.
And Nathan, you deal with 50 to 80 or so veterans a day, sometimes downstairs in your County Veteran Service office. Has this been a topic that has come up before for you with regards to moral injury, or for some of your veteran service reps that are down there dealing with our veterans on a daily basis?
Yeah, we help a lot of people in our office. A lot of people do come in on a day-to-day basis. Being that we're not a mental health clinic, I don't think people primarily come in, with a moral injury really obvious or discussing it. It's kind of, it's present, it's there, but I think they come in for other things. They want to talk about service connection. They want to talk about education benefits. But I think oftentimes when sitting down with the veteran or with a family member, you really get a sense, you get a taste, a flavor of the injury that does exist. And it's very interesting, moral injury, I'm really coming to understand it myself. As I mentioned, it's not in the DSM-5. Right. There's really no specific diagnosis criteria for it. But there's obviously something that exists amongst our veteran population, an injury that exists. And it can range all the way from, I think sometimes people are injured by the fact that they don't feel like they did enough. I think the moral part there is that as a service member, they were trained and taught that they had to give everything. They had to do their job completely and always be there for the unit. And it seems like the injury exists in a sense that their service didn't matter, and that they should have gone back for another tour, or they should have done something more in a particular situation. It seems like there's always, and I don't know if it would be a form of guilt, but it seems like an injury to their
some
moral.
of that falls into that survivor guilt situation too, where they've come home and they may not have brought all of their team members home with them.
Right.
Wasn't there something I could do? I've dealt with that in some way with some of Joey's buddies, in that even though they weren't even there, that was the whole point. They weren't even there. If I would have been on the road that day, I could have done something different.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that really ties into the moral injury as much, but as you know, I'm a chaplain's assistant with the National Guard, and so when we do our trainings, I get an opportunity to talk to guys that have deployed, and they may want to be able to talk to the chaplain about struggles they're having with whatever faith channel that they're going down, or whatever their particular faith is. They sense the same kind of a moral injury, and it wasn't what they were taught.
Right.
And so we get talked, people will come up to me and want to talk to the chaplain and say, I don't understand, I can't process this, what does it mean, have I sinned? However that works into their faith belief. And so it definitely is a problem that's difficult to talk about. It's a problem that's difficult to face, and we sure would love to hear from some of our veterans out there that maybe be able to share with us. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to deal with those things that are right in front of you sometimes.
We absolutely would. And tonight we welcome your calls, your emails, your chats. Tonight's episode is specifically for us to develop the content and the show around moral injury. And we're going to have a full show about this topic in February. But tonight we want to invite you to contribute, whether it's to share from your own experiences, or whether it's to share from others' experiences, or just share what you want to learn.
Or just have questions. And unfortunately, we're only going to be here for the next 2 or 3, maybe 4 minutes. And so if you do have some questions, some calls, some input, this would be the time to get a hold of us, to email, to chat, to call in. The number's on the screen. Right. So we would ask you to please do that now, so that we can respond to you and we can better develop our content for February's show.
It's interesting that you mentioned the chaplains, because I remember being, I think 22 years old, being really young, and suddenly the role of the chaplain made sense. It was up to the point of deploying to Iraq. It seemed like the chaplain was just always kind of a duty or a responsibility. No one really understood it. But we're young and obviously a little bit wet behind the ears, but as young little 22-year-olds heading into Iraq for the invasion in 2003, suddenly, including myself, people had that question about the conflict that was being presented for the first time in regards to, a very spiritual message about thou shalt not kill.
Right.
And here we are sitting on the edge of Kuwait, about to head into Iraq, presented with this dilemma of we're about to go into a country and fight a war. So
based on your training. And you don't have time to think about these things.
Right.
It's not until you come back and try to rationalize maybe a little bit what happened. And that's for me, the real gratifying part about working within the Chaplain Corps, being part of the UMT, is that we're a safe zone. I'm hoping that when you were there, you had a chaplain that cared about you guys, that spent time with the what we call the Joes or the Marines,
right.
and you felt comfortable talking to them in a way that was safe, because it doesn't have to go in your record. It doesn't have to, and that's what we try to establish within the chaplains, and we hope that's what comes across to those of you guys that are out there.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder now, thinking about it, the military has always had that role of a chaplain be so prominent, and not because they're trying to promote, I think, a particular faith or religion. I think because although we're really just coming to understand moral injury today, I think the military has maybe always had an understanding that there is that conflict and there's that injury that exists, and so they knew to have that role as the chaplain, as a part of that unit.
And the teams, our job is to provide spiritual and moral support.
Yeah.
Nothing specific.
Very important.
Spiritual and moral support, whatever your belief system is.
Right.
I have my own very strong belief system, but that's mine. I'm there to support what our guys are doing. So again,
we're at 15 minutes. We get about another 5 minutes here. So we want to invite people to call in.
Yeah, if you have an opportunity, we'd love to hear from you. We're putting together a really great show. We have some great guests lined up. But if you have any feedback, also feel free to contact us through the website anytime in the next couple of weeks. It doesn't have to be tonight.
Absolutely.
If you're watching this on a rebroadcast, I hope you enjoy the last segment of the show, which are highlights from the previous year. So at this point, I'd like to thank you for joining us. And please keep calling, emailing, chatting with us with your great suggestions, feedback, and questions. We will now broadcast a pre-recorded highlight show, and we'll see you back here in February to discuss moral injury. In tonight's episode, we will be sharing with you our favorite moments from 2015. We are not broadcasting live and cannot take your calls. However, we love feedback, so feel free to email or leave us a message with your ideas for our 2016 season.
Veterans Voices was founded as an outreach program to help us connect with you. We want to open the door for veterans and their families into resources from the VA and surrounding community that you might not know exist. Our television production team learned a great deal as well along the way. Let's take a look at some of our year's past episodes that focused on these resources and the people who are working hard to assist veterans and their families in our community.
My name is Jenna Galvin Spears. Originally from Texas, I live in Concord. Working with veterans is very rewarding just generally. And so my role here in the office, basically what I do is I assist veterans in understanding the VA benefits, understanding the way the VA works, just generally being their advocate. A lot of times, you know, those VA letters can get overwhelming. The regulations can be overwhelming, and it's sometimes nice to have somebody walk you through the process and help you understand what's going on. Our veterans are some of the strongest people I've ever met in my life, and it's really cool to know those kind of people. I've always been drawn to superheroes and kind of anti-heroes. There is a characteristic that runs through many veterans. They are very selfless, and in many instances, they help people without being asked to help people. And in some way, that makes them hero-like, right?
So we're going to move into a very important benefit in which you both have real experience working with, and that's the education benefit. When I joined the Marine Corps, it was because of the GI Bill. It was because I knew that when I finished my time in the Marine Corps, I could go to college. And that GI Bill was such an important decision to make and join the Marine Corps, and it was in the forefront of my mind throughout my time in the Marine Corps that when I left, it's the first thing I did. I used the VA's education benefits. And those benefits have grown immensely in the past couple of years. As Fred mentioned, since 9/11, the healthcare's changed, but also the education benefits have changed. So Jenna, start us off. You used to work in an educational institution, used to help veterans apply for education benefits. You do so in our office as well as the other benefits. But tell us a little bit about the opportunities available to veterans when they want to go to school.
Okay, well, the newer GI Bill is the post-9/11 GI Bill. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, following 9/11, a lot of the benefits were enhanced. Mm-hmm. And so the post-9/11 GI Bill, it not only gives them tuition and fees covered at an in-state school. If they go to a private school, they will hit a cap.
Right.
If they're at 100%, which they would have had to serve 36 months following 9/11, 2001, in order
not to be confused with 100% service connected.
Correct.
If they're 100% entitled to the education benefit because of the time they served. But glad the Army had you for 30 years. Thank you for serving. And you continue to serve. You're the Undersecretary for Veterans Homes at CalVet.
Sure.
A very important part of CalVet is understanding that it's a state agency. So when we talk about Undersecretary of CalVet, you work for the state of California and you manage the veterans homes throughout the state. And we're here in Contra Costa County, so a lot of folks understand the CalVet Veterans Homes as being Yountville. Right. Tell us a little bit about the history of Yountville. It's very exciting to hear how that veterans home started.
Sure. Well, first let me say that, after 30 years in the Army, it was really difficult for me not to want to continue to give service to veterans. So I did, I volunteered when I first got out, and I was fortunate enough to get this job. And it's an incredibly rewarding experience for me right now. Wow. The Yountville home, as you've already mentioned, is one of the oldest in the nation. It's 131 years old. Some veterans, basically, that really wanted to give back and offer a transitional place for the folks getting out of the Civil War to go.
Imagine that.
So they had almost 900 acres up in Napa, and they taught them not only how to rehabilitate themselves and get to a better health, but they also offered them some transitional type jobs, farming, ironworks, those kind of things that would kind of give people a trade.
So the healthcare system is the largest part of the VA in terms of employees and number of facilities. In fact, I just learned recently that the VA Healthcare Administration has over 1,400 clinics and hospitals. Give us a little bit of an understanding of how those clinics exist in terms of their relationship to a hospital, and what's the difference between an outpatient clinic and a community-based outpatient clinic or a CBOC?
It's a great question. And I'm glad that healthcare was meaningful to you in your veteran journey, like you shared at the start.
It was.
VA hospital, that's where an inpatient goes. So you have to get admitted to the hospital, you get connected there. Okay. But years ago, the VA said, how do we get out to communities where we don't currently exist? How do we create access for care where the veterans live, away from where the hospitals are located? So when you hear the term community-based outpatient clinic or ambulatory care center, that's talking about outpatient care, a doctor's office where you go and get care or have a minor procedure done, as opposed to getting admitted to the hospital.
Veterans Voicings is not only a platform to share resources, but a place to share your stories, as well as the stories of your families. Episodes like Gold Star Families and The Family Serves As Well reminded us that military service impacts a far wider circle than just the service member. Let's watch some of the highlights from those shows.
Take us real quickly through the family's experience of having 3 sons in the military, and as a mom, how that's impacted your life. It led you to your role in the National Guard, isn't that correct?
That's correct. It was a very scary time for me. Nobody quite understood me, my emotions, and so I was very blessed to be driving down Willow Pass Road, and I ran right into the Veterans Building there, and the Blue Star Moms were holding a care package drive. So I stopped to find out what they were all about and immediately joined, and they were the best organization you could ever be a part of to receive that emotional support.
You both represent the community, and we are so fortunate to have Blue Star Moms in our community, not only as moms but as an organization, because of all of the support that they provide to our military and to our veterans. So we get an opportunity to talk about that. Where does the Blue Star idea come from?
From an Army captain in World War I who had 2 sons serving on the front lines, and he felt that there should be something that signified a loved one's service, that families could actually show with pride. And so he created the Blue Star Service flag, which we hang in our windows.
About it. You'll get the hang of it as we go along.
I'm the care package coordinator for the Contra Costa Blue Star Moms. I'm also a proud Marine mom. I didn't want to even join the Blue Star Moms. Well, 2 friends called and insisted that I join, and their parting words were, Loretta, join anyway. You don't have to do anything, and Tony will get a care package. So here I am, the care package coordinator. We send out probably anywhere from 700 to 1,000 care packages per year. We do big shipments for the 4th of July, which we just did today. It truly is a labor of love because we've gotten some wonderful thank you notes back from our deployed troops on how much it meant to them to get a package from home that includes all the things from home that they've missed, and just knowing that somebody here is thinking about them and sending them lots of love. Blue Star Moms, we're lots of love in a care package.
Would you be okay with your children joining the military after suffering the loss of your husbands? Oh. That's a tough one, huh?
Yeah. Go ahead. Well, Zoe's, Sean was in the military, enrolled in the Navy before we started dating, and then we fell in love, and he kind of got out of that, but then joined the Army a couple years later, so he always had that need to serve, and I've always been a very patriotic girl, and so as hard as it would be, if that was what she felt in her heart, I would back her up 100%. I'd be scared as ever. But.
How does Mac ask many questions about Ben?
He does. He has over the years. So he's 7 now.
Right.
So he really only had 3 months as an infant with his dad before Ben went off to Iraq. So over the years, as the anniversaries would come by or different memorial significant days, he was aware. We allowed him and wanted him to be present and experience those things. But I think just over the past couple of years, he started to ask more questions, and they're not. They come at random times, and they're interesting.
At the most unexpected moments, huh?
Yes. One time he wanted me to tell him funny stories of Ben, and I actually like the questions because it kind of gives me an idea of where he's at and processing that, and it helps me remember and recall, because sometimes you get caught up in daily life, and when I have my child there to remind me, like, don't forget to think about him.
I have older children that they were adults when Charles died. And one of my other sons came, and he was listening to my brother and I speaking, and he told me, he says, I'll never have that opportunity to talk to Charles about the things we've done throughout our lives. And I know it hurt him pretty badly.
That's that collateral damage that we talked about.
Veterans Voices doesn't only take place here in our Contra Costa TV studio. We travel out into the community as well. We feel it's important to cover veterans events and current issues live in the field. VetCon and Stand Down were 2 important events in our community this year, and Veterans Voices was on location to capture the action and bring you some unique perspectives firsthand.
We are broadcasting live from VetCon today. If you're watching from home, come down to VetCon at the Concord Hilton.
And we are back here at VetCon 2015. I'm standing here with Quentin Irian, who is with the Wounded Warrior Program. How are you today?
I'm good. It's actually Wounded Warrior Project.
There you go. I stand corrected. Wounded Warrior Project. So can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
So we're 100% donor funded. There's over 20 programs and services in our organization nationwide. We have 20, I want to say, I'm going to hit the number wrong, I always do, 23 different locations around the U.S.
Wow.
And that does include Germany, Hawaii, Alaska, and our office here in Roseville, California, just northeast of Sacramento.
And one of the best things here today at VetCon is Sentinels of Freedom, one of my favorite nonprofit organizations serving veterans throughout the nation, but located here in San Ramon. And so we have the opportunity to get to interview Sentinels of Freedom, and we have Sam Coe here from Sentinels. So Sam, thank you for being here at VetCon, and we've had Sentinels as a guest on the show in the past, and so our audience is already familiar. But for those that didn't watch the show, tell us a little bit about what Sentinels of Freedom is.
Absolutely. Sentinels of Freedom is a nonprofit scholarship foundation who provides scholarships to wounded veterans who have at least a 50% disability rating. And along with that scholarship, we provide a housing subsidy that assists them for 24 months of their housing. And then we connect them with mentors and networks as they begin their transition process from getting out of the military to then going to school and earning their degree.
We're here at the Veterans Memorial Building in Danville, where we caught up with the Vietnam veterans of Diablo Valley. This organization is comprised of veterans from all branches of the armed forces who served in the Vietnam conflict. We came to hear their personal stories and what it was like transitioning back to civilian life. They also had some great insights into the similarities and differences experienced by Iraq and Afghanistan veterans returning home. These are their stories. What was it like coming back?
Well, the reception from family and friends was warm and good. But there was a very poison atmosphere in the public at large about Vietnam. After my tour in Antarctica, I had shore duty in Monterey, and that was kind of a Berkeley Junior, you might say, and kind of a hotbed of anti-war folks. And driving down the street in uniform and having some teenager running after the car screaming, "Murderer, murderer." Not a fun experience.
We're here in Antioch, California, which is the east part of Contra, Costa County, at Stand Down on the Delta, an event serving homeless veterans over the next 4 days. So tell us a little bit about what this opportunity in serving homeless veterans means to you. Why did you come to Stand Down today to care for our homeless veterans?
I have family that is in the military, and active and non-active, and sometimes the veterans fall through the VA's cracks, and this was a great opportunity for me to come and give back to the vets and help the patients who have fallen through the cracks get the help that they need and deserve.
What has the transition out of the military been like for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's been fairly rough at times with the whole transitioning from the military, just becoming a civilian. I think once you get out the military as a soldier, you never really become a civilian again. However, we have to adapt to everyday life as a civilian once we get out, and it's kind of hard for us to do. I've been out now for 12 years, and I still haven't quite figured it out yet. So.
Have you ever faced challenges like being homeless?
Yes, I have, actually. When I first got out, I was homeless. I tried to apply for my benefits. However, I wasn't so lucky, and I just had to kind of fend for myself. Back in 2003, there was not as many veterans programs and resources then that they have now.
But now, 12 years later, have you been able to help yourself? Have you gotten to a point in which you have become more stable in your transition? And if so, how have you helped yourself?
The Vet Center kind of helped me cope with what I was going through when I first got out. It wasn't easy, you know. But once I got there, I started meeting different people, and I got all the resources that I needed so that I can make my life a little bit better than what it was. I recently worked at EDD as a Veteran Service Navigator, so I can reach out to the veterans in the community, because a lot of them, they don't know that they need help, or they're in denial, and they actually do need help. So I started to attend vet cons and things like that, just to kind of, you know, pull in a veteran, just let them know, hey, my story is your story, you know, we're not, you know, I'm not better than you, you're not better than me, we're one, you know, and we all need each other for support.
We want to have a conversation about homelessness. Tell us a little bit about being homeless. How does someone find themselves homeless?
It happens in the blink of an eye. One instance can change, you know, between job, family, stress, and it just happens. Jobs, we've lost everything, our economy, things have changed. And some veterans are in a position to where they can't work and can't get someone to give them enough mental help or give them in the right direction to where they can try to put their lives back together. I was just one of the fortunate out of the millions that had that opportunity. But if we reach out and touch, and our community would help some, we could have a good chance at coming back to a normal life. And it'll never be normal again, but it'll be one of substance and, you know, purpose.
This year we felt that it was important to discuss the opportunities and importance of veterans continuing to serve in their community. It's commonly known that one of the difficulties in transitioning out of the military is finding a new mission or new purpose and feeling connected to your community. Here are some moments from our past year that feature those organizations and veterans who model the very real opportunities for continued service that exist to veterans today.
The Mission Continues has two ways you can volunteer: through the fellowship program if you're a post 9/11 veteran, or if you're a veteran from any era, you can join what's called the service platoon. And I'm with the service platoon in the Bay Area, and we go into the community and we work with other veterans that join us, and we go in and do projects and help veterans feel a part of the community.
I want to remind everyone that tonight's episode is titled Reboot 3, Veterans Serving in the Community. And we have Vietnam veterans of Diablo Valley. We have 3 Vietnam veterans on the stage tonight, John, Jerry, and Bill. And I want to invite you to call in, write an email, or chat with us, ask any questions or comments, and you can find out from these gentlemen directly of why they spend several hours investing into their community and what they get from it.
I want to mention that, all of us have been involved in a lot of different things. One thing that really impressed me was we got involved in working with the Wheelchair Foundation, and we volunteered at a lot of their events, and we had the opportunity to go back to Vietnam in 2006 and 2012 and gave wheelchairs, distributed them to orphanages and those that were disabled. And it kind of closed the book for me on something that was an extremely moving trip. And that's another local organization. We worked with them volunteering, and that's how our organization was able to take the local brand new wheelchairs over there. And so that was a special.
What a fantastic opportunity, John. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I think that a lot of combat veterans stay connected to the place that they served. I think World War II veterans, for example, may stay connected. Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans stay connected to where they served in combat. Iraq, Afghanistan, Desert Storm, and there's many other examples. We're missing other eras. And so they're through organizations like yours, Vietnam Veterans of Diablo Valley, you've been able to stay connected to Vietnam, and you've been able to go back to Vietnam and serve that community as well as you've served this community since leaving the military.
Mike, you've made a couple trips back to Vietnam. Share with us what your experience has been and why you made those trips.
Well, very fortunate for me, I was invited to go in 2003 by David Baring of the Wheelchair Foundation. And he just put it out there to our Vietnam Veterans group and says, we've got a small group going and we can handle more people. Does anybody want to come along? And it was a fairly affordable thing at the time. And so I happily jumped on board, and I was the only Vietnam vet that went on that trip. But the purpose there was to distribute wheelchairs to Vietnamese. And I was so buoyed by the first trip that we made it a mission of the Vietnam Vets of Diablo Valley to raise funds and get enough capital together to buy wheelchairs and to do another trip. And it took us a couple of years to raise enough money.
The Wall That Heals is one of 4 walls that travel the country to educate people about the Vietnam Memorial and the Vietnam War in general. We had built the memorial in Washington, D.C. in 1982, but we needed to bring this to communities, to deliver it to people, young or old, who couldn't either physically or emotionally make it to the wall in Washington, D.C. We usually travel to about 40 stops each year. The Vietnam Memorial has become a symbol that everyone can rally around, no matter what era they're from. We can gather and we can remember friends, we can remember comrades, and we can remember loved ones, and we will continue to memorialize their service and sacrifice.
Input and participation from our community is what really keeps the show relevant and interesting. In November, we had our very first dedicated show to women veterans and the issues they sometimes face. In fact, Kevin, you and I weren't even on the show.
That's right.
We had it co-hosted by Melissa and Lindsay. They did a fantastic job.
Yes, they did.
We received a record number of calls, live chats, and emails during that episode. It was an amazing experience for us. The idea of this episode was based on feedback we've gotten from our viewers. Here's a compilation of viewer comments and how they've made an important impact on our show.
Starting first class Hutton, with you still being active duty, what was transition like for you? You have been deployed several times to several different remote locations, and so what have you kind of gone through in that transition, and how have they differed each time?
All my transitions have been extremely different, starting even from the beginning in 2003 up into my most recent and returning in 2014. The hardest part for me being a single parent in the military is reconnecting and transitioning with my children, making those family ties. And I am a master resiliency trainer, and I teach these lifelong skills to help the soldiers transition. And just like Dr. Gaffney said, you know, while we're in the uniform, we're so used to the camaraderie of being around each other in the support system. And coming back my last time, I realized that outside of the military, even though I had my direct family, I didn't have a support system. I returned in April of 2014. And I immediately PCS within 90 days. And then I came directly across the U.S. here to California and realized I had nothing.
So we're going to jump back to our caller. And Gloria, are you with us?
I am.
Good, great.
Hi,
Gloria.
Hi, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And so you have a question?
I don't have a question, but I did want to add on to what was being talked about just now regarding the challenges women are facing transitioning back.
Sure.
You had just mentioned the compartmentalizing, and I think that's huge because I don't think that the women I'm speaking to don't even realize that they need to go through the process of dealing with their issues because their compartmentalization is so good.
Right. I also want to say a special thank you to Melissa and Chastity for all their work and dedication they have done to, you know, support our nonprofit. We really appreciate it. And thank you once again for letting us call in this evening.
But I think it's important, as the young ladies and the veterans spoke earlier, to connect when you get out the service with any possible avenue that the VA offers in order to do a smoother transition into the civilian life. Because sometimes we experience things in the service that halt us from being productive civilians.
Right.
So it's important to take advantage of all services that the VA offer. The VA has very good programs for women and men, but the women has a harder time connecting.
Arthur, welcome to the show, Arthur. Thank you for calling. You're calling from Merced, so we have the VBA on the show here. Arthur, do you have a question?
Well, yes, I have a question / comment. I have been fighting a claim since 1969, and it eventually started going my way in 2009. And then I talked to another doctor here several months ago, and they said I was finally rated. At first I was rated at 40%.
Okay.
Then they said I was increased to 70%.
Okay.
And then they said this was all news to me.
And let me ask you, Arthur, did an association help you out, or an organization like the American Legion or a county veteran service office? Did someone help you down there in Merced County?
Yes, actually, yes, in Merced.
Very good.
Actually, it was out of Oakland for AMVETS.
Okay, the AMVETS office on the 11th floor in Oakland. Okay, and probably an AMVETS officer was stationed maybe at the clinic there or the hospital that you go to?
No, I was just doing this all over the computer with AMVETS.
With AMVETS. Okay, great. So Arthur, thank you for calling. And there's a lot of veteran service organizations also at the regional office. Right. And the County Veteran Service Office, which is not in the Oakland Regional Office, their job, like the AMVETS who has helped Arthur, is to help veterans navigate the VA regional office. So they get to complement, in a sense, the public contact team and the rating board and all the folks who are making the day-to-day decisions, helping veterans out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to say that we so much depend on the veteran service organizations. Yeah. They're a vital part of making this thing work. And especially if you're a veteran that lives, say, way up in Wairika or something, it's so great to have representation in your own county just to be able to go there and get help. And so we very much depend on them. And even as we've moved to encouraging veterans to apply online for their disability benefits, it hasn't cut out the use of the veteran service officers.
As it shouldn't.
Because they are able to also help a veteran virtually with their claim and getting it ready to submit to us.
And Valerie, tell us a little bit about your service member or your family's service.
I have a daughter who's an Army specialist, and I have a son who's in the Marines in Hawaii, and he's going on a 1-year deployment.
So 2 stars. So we've got 3 and 2 and 1, and how fantastic that your daughter is serving, your son are serving at the same time. And thank you for your service, Valerie. And what chapter are you a part of as a Blue Star mom?
Carol.
Chapter 20. Well, great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Valerie. And what a great way for the family members to show that the depth of what the Blue Star moms are capable of doing.
We'd like to remind you that you can always call or email us with your valuable feedback. Our website has a short survey you can fill out to let us know what topics or issues are relevant to you and what changes you'd like to see in the upcoming 2016 season. Our show is called Veterans Voices. So write in, call in, and share your voice.
We started Veterans Voices with a purpose in mind. How can we reach those who may not know what services are available? And how can we build those lines of communication with our veterans? You are a valuable part of this show, and we look forward to hearing from you about what can make Veterans Voices must-see TV for you. Please take a moment to visit our website and give us your thoughts. Happy holidays from the entire Veterans Voices team, and we'll be back with you in 2016.